Hello, and welcome to Greet the Week, or as one of our guests announced today, Happy Monday. And this is looking at the fact of how that we can see Mondays in a different light and kind of, stair step it down or stair step it up to seeing other things in a different light rather than dreading as to being thankful for. So our topic today is truth or dare. And
Awesome.
can you see that? I didn't share my screen.
No, not yet.
Yeah, okay. Share the screen. And then yeah, there we go. We'll share it now and take it up. Okay, truth or dare. What is truth? What is daring? Well, when circumstances are less than ideal, as we can look deep down inside to see what life is trying to teach us, obeying the rules of the road can help us to diminish getting a ticket or a traffic accident or a speeding ticket. Listening to our internal moral compass. But the thing of it is to listen to our internal moral compass. It speaks real soft and real gently. So it takes time to really hear it. So in daring to be truthful, what does it mean to be truthful? I looked around and came up with some quotes to kind of begin to think about it. Our speaker last week on making sense of it was Ron Modern, and he said, we create chaos when truth or power comes too close to us. So whenever there's something there that's getting a little too close, we have a tendency to be disruptors, that we're maybe not ready to handle it yet. And so Josiah Gilbert Holland says that calmness is the cradle of power. So if we're wanting to always be truthful and to always go in what is the most prudent, the most efficient, the most prudent, it maybe is going back and adapting that calmness. James Allen wrote that a strong man cannot help a weaker man unless the weaker man is willing to be helped. That none but himself can alter his condition. And so that gives pause for thinking and seeing what is it that we really need to think about. Henry Ford, back in the early 1900s, said that in every community there is work to be done. In every nation there are wounds to be healed. And in every heart there is power to do it. And there is. And so it's daring to be truthful. It's daring to be. I know there's a lady at our church that was asked for a prayer request because she's having some difficulties and she's been released to be at home, but she's having difficulty breathing. And I've just been sitting here thinking, you know what? I need to just go pick her up and bring her home with me, or at least check on her more than just a phone call. Because in every heart, there really is the power to do more than sometimes we do. Zig Ziglar said, you are where you are because of what goes through your mind. And so therefore, you can change your mind. You can change what you are and where you are by changing what goes on in your mind. Which that sounds like Dr. Glass from reality therapy, but it's the same thought in the different words. And Pythagoras, the Greek philosopher, said that the two oldest and the two shortest words are yes and no. And that those are those words that require the most thinking. And rather than being really quick on the yes or really quick on the no, to give a little thinking to it. And then I absolutely love this. I started to put this on. Is Carl Rogers, psychologist. He said, the curious paradox is that when I accept myself as I am, then I can change. It's
Mm.
amazing what acceptance can do, just accepting us for who we are. So, truth or dare? Back in 67 to 93, there was Rowan and Martin's Laughing. And one of their regulars on there was Lily Tomlin, and she portrayed Edith Ann. And Edith Ann was a 5-year-old, and she sat in this humongous chair. And she would just be dwarfed. I mean, as a full-grown adult, she was just dwarfed in that big old chair. And she had her hair up in pigtails and was always dressed up, and she always had a popsicle that she held in her hand. And she would just talk about the most enormous adventures and exaggerations and things that was just absolutely so outlandish. And then she would focus right in on the camera and look directly into it. And she'd take that sucker right there and she would proclaim adamantly, "This is the truth." That's the truth. This is the truth. And, sometimes we laugh at things like that because life does tickle our funny bones. The audience saw the comedy in the childish performance of Lily Tomlin being Edith Ann, and how it emphasized how that sometimes, we too can go askew in thinking that we're being funnier than we really are. And think about Archie Bunker and Meathead, and how that, most of us probably found something humorous to laugh at that either Archie said or that Meathead, and getting his frustration as to what Archie had said. But we often find humor in situations that we identify with. Of course, it can also lead to anger. And sometimes it's good to laugh at ourselves and to realize how silly we're being, to see our foibles. And that's coming from our shadow side. Mm-hmm. So we're looking at how that truth hurts. But I suggest that it hurts only when it's supposed to. That if it's legitimate and we recognize it, we can begin to use it to heal. Sometimes life breaks our heart. The heartache is not necessarily from seeing truth, but from not knowing how, or from refusing to be set free by the truth that we do see. Allowing that sting to take us into self-evaluation, where we can begin to look at who we are, who we have become, who we really are, who we can become, and to lovingly adjust as we tend to business. It was John of the Cross is pretty much credited with having come up with the definition of the darkness of the deep soul, of the pain and the agony of pain in life. And anyway, the pain in life, whether it's physical or mental or emotional, is kind of an either or situation. It's hard to see it when you're in the depth of it. It's kind of an either or situation, because John of the Cross began to see that it's either for the sickness that maybe would lead to our demise, or it can be for our transformation. That it depends a great deal on how we look at what we look for the outcome to be. Mm-hmm. To whatever that pain is, that truth that does hurt, ouch, ouch, I am that way, ouch. That truth that does hurt, that we let it heal us rather than to destroy. And that our feelings, they're very important, but they don't always tell us the truth. They just kind of emphasize how we do feel. Belief is not necessarily truth. Truth is what we tell ourselves that we believe. Research shows that our mind is a field of energy that is not confined to our brain. That the brain is always processing information. It's a processing plant. And it takes all the information that comes through our 5 senses, and it mixes it with all the things that we've thought of before and is still there in the rummaging around in the unconscious or in the creative mind. And it's what helps us to think and what you believe is your best guess at the moment at what is real. Your best guess at reality is conditioned by the society in which we live. And how that often, how many times have we thought of something and then stopped to think, do I believe it or not? I know whenever I've worked with the prison system, and I still think about it a lot, that I was asked quite, do you really believe that? You know, it would be a putting down of something that I may have said or suggested. And I said, do you really believe that? And it caused me to really stop and think, and I still do that a lot now. Is that really what I think? And are there some, because the thinking has a tendency to go to the negative.
Mm-hmm.
And even when I saw there was, sometimes even the positive can go to the negative. I mean, we talk about, or we hear about inflation, especially in America now, and so many places in the world, but the thing of it is they're more than enough. It's just that we often put a bottleneck on it and don't allow the enough to be enough. Society doesn't tell us the truth. Society goes with fads and trends and whatever's the end thing. But our thoughts don't tell us the truth, because they tell us whether we are or are not measuring up to what we think is society's. And circumstances don't tell us the truth, because no matter how real they seem to be, they're really pretty much our ego that's trying to prove to us that you do believe or you do not believe. We want to listen to our wisdom heart that will tell us more about our beliefs and our feelings and our viewpoints. And then to think about it and to make a decision. So what does reveal truth? Well, life does. Truth is universal and it applies to everyone equally. Life speaks truth whether we believe it or not, whether we can handle it or not. Whether it's rain or whether there's drought, whether there's hurricanes or tsunamis, it falls equally on the just and the unjust. Pain manifests sickness or it manifests transformation. That goes back to one of the things that John of the Cross had said, was rather than looking at all of the whys, it's looking at what is the purpose of this sickness? What is the purpose of this pain? What is the purpose of this humiliation? Is it to manifest sickness within the body? Because it certainly can. Or is it for us to make a decision that is humbling, that is helpful, that helps us to realize who we really are, that we're more powerful than we often give ourselves credit for. Even though those pain, hurts and sicknesses and broken hearts don't heal overnight. Life reveals to us whether things are plumb or not. And plumb, talking about in carpentry, you know, to make sure that it's an exact, so that it's really square rather than having a lean-to. Or even gravity. You know, gravity, the positive and the negative, is that we'll look at gravity, that it holds us to the earth so that we're not floating around. It also keeps the planets in their orbit. That whether we are a skilled iron worker or a nuclear science or an adventurous child that's doing a tightrope walk on the roof, the truth of gravity shows itself as being accurate. That whenever we fall, we fall. But as we are more cautious and use the seat belts or the safety belts and the things that will provide for our safety, whether or not it's going to reveal truth or not. So rather than coping, it's learning to overcome. There is a big difference in thinking you're an idiot and in thinking you did a pretty idiotic thing. When thoughts begin to increase frustration and anger and sadness or instability, then maybe it's time for us to stop and to challenge what we're seeing as our truth. Does what you believe hold water? Is your attitude working for you, or is it working against you? What part of you is upset? And it's usually the exposure of our shadow side. And as we can name it, you know, what is it that's what's so frustrating? And as we can take its license away, that it's not something that, no, I'm not going there again. When circumstances are less than ideal, look deep inside to see what life is teaching you. Obey the rules of the road. And as we do that, the chances are much less that we'll get a speeding ticket, or that we will have a wreck, or that we'll get a ticket for a traffic violation. And then as we listen to our internal moral compass, or our GPS, because we're cosmic beings and we are multidimensional. It goes back to those 6, you know, to those 5 needs and all the things that we have stored, and we put them together and it just comes up. Sometimes they're really great and fantastic, and sometimes they're not so good. But note that still small voice, that wisdom heart, speaks to us quietly and softly and gently. But we have to listen for it to be heard. We have to give ourselves space to grow. So there's a poem written by Mother Teresa that I wanted to share with you today. People are unreasonable, illogical, and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you are kind, people will accuse you of having selfish motives. Be kind anyway. If you are successful, you will win some false friends and some true enemies. Succeed anyway. If you are honest and frank, people will cheat you. Be honest and frank anyway. What you spend years building, someone could destroy overnight. Build anyway. You see, in the final analysis, it's between you and God. It's between you and life. It's between you and your decisions. It never was between you and them anyway. Because it really is about us. You think you can do it? Well, I think you can. Thank you for being here. I appreciate your attention and would look forward to any comments or suggestions. Go in peace.